What's on your mind today?
Well, Tucker Carlson's on my mind, Tom. Since he got fired, I've been looking up stuff about him, and some of these fun facts are really fun. I found out that his biological parents got divorced in 1976 when he was about 7 years old. And in 1979, his father married Patricia Caroline Swanson, who was the Swanson heiress.
Right.
So she is his stepmother, not his biological mother. His biological mother moved to France after the divorce, and the father got custody of Tucker and his brother. In any event, I have no knowledge, of course, of the internal financial dynamics of the family, so I don't know if his stepmother has provided for him in her will or not. I did find that it appears his net worth is around $30 million, which is pretty darn good for most of us. But
that seems low, given that he was being paid $35 million a year.
Well, you know, these things are kind of hard to tease out.
Yeah,
but
and of course, I'm only on the $35 million. I'm only going by press reports. I mean, they may not be true either. Rush Limbaugh was claiming he was making $400 million, and he was inflating the numbers hugely.
Yeah, I did see sources that cited his salary as lower than $35 million. But what's also interesting about him is that growing up as I did on the south side of Chicago, me and people from my neighborhood would recognize him immediately as a snotty punk, which is what he is. He was enrolled as an adolescent in an exclusive boarding school in Switzerland, but got kicked out. And when he graduated from Trinity College in 1991, the yearbook described him as a member of the, quote, Dan White Society, unquote, a reference to the assassin who murdered George Moscone and Harvey Milk.
Right.
That says a lot about who and what he is and always has been.
Yeah.
He applied to the CIA after graduation, and his application was rejected. His father then told him, pursue a career in journalism because they'll take anybody.
Well, his father was the head of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, wasn't he?
That's right, he was.
Yeah.
And he was also with the Voice of America before that, and then after Corporation for Public Broadcasting, he was an ambassador to the Seychelles.
Yeah.
But I also found something that you as a psychological counsel would be interesting in. He is left-handed and dyslexic, which explains, I think, or at least it gives an insight into some of his behavior and his personality.
The source of some of his rage, you mean?
Yeah. He's also a former smoker. He had started in 8th grade, and to this day, since he quit, he constantly chews nicotine gum and wears nicotine patches. And believe it or not, he is a Deadhead, fan of the Grateful Dead, who has attended over 50 Dead concerts.
Well, that's like one little positive note about him. I didn't realize he was a nicotine addict, but that's, you can't knock people for being, drug addicts if they're not, inflicting their drugs on other people. At least he's not blowing smoke in other people's faces anymore.
Here's the one last thing that says a lot about how he's essentially a dictatorial, tyrannical personality and who he worships, like the president of Hungary. He spoke at the funeral of longtime Hells Angels president Sonny Barger. Carlson was a fan of his since his college years, loved the Barger quote of "stay loyal, remain free, and always value honor." And he said that's the kind of man he wanted to pay tribute to. This is a guy who was essentially an organized crime.
Right. He was running meth and guns, wasn't he, Barger?
Oh, and any other kind of substance that would make money for the boys.
Yeah.
And this is who he worships. But still, he's a punk who grew up in a wealthy family, went to exclusive schools, so he's just a wannabe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think an awful lot of that also describes Donald Trump, who made it all the way into the White House. So I am not discounting this guy, and I'm concerned. George, thank you. Thank you for the call, and thanks for the research. That's fascinating.